Chosen one, this word did not reach you by chance. It's not just another video, nor a random message in the wind. It is a direct summons from heaven for your life at this very moment. There are moments in every person's spiritual history when God interrupts the routine, cuts through the noise around you, and speaks so clearly that the heart cannot pretend it didn't hear. This is one of those moments. His voice is not a suggestion, not an option you can decide to put off until later. It is a call that defines the course of your history, that separates the time of waiting from the time of fulfillment. While the world shouts with its confusing voices, God whispers with power in the depths of your soul. The noise of opinions, news, fears, and comparisons tries to distract you, but inside you there is something that pulses, a flame that does not go out, a restlessness that cannot be explained by logic. It is God Himself saying, "I have something to reveal to you," something that changes everything if you decide to listen. The difference between those who merely pass through life and those who mark generations is exactly here, in the willingness to discern the divine voice amidst the chaos. Jonah tried to flee and was swallowed by the sea of his own resistance, but even then God reached him. Elijah hid in a cave, but the voice did not come in the strong wind or the earthquake. It came in the gentle whisper that pierced his soul. This same voice is now before you, not by chance, not by coincidence, but by purpose. God did not bring you here to hear another motivational message, but to seal a prophetic encounter with you. He saw the tears no one saw, heard the silent screams you never dared to confess, and now extends His hand saying, "This is the time I have been waiting for to speak with you in an unmistakable way." This word is not generic. It's not for the crowd. It is for you, chosen, separated, marked from the womb, to live something that the world still does not understand. And there is a promise that echoes from the beginning. If you listen, if you welcome this voice and do not harden your heart, new paths will be opened, doors that were locked will be unlocked, and cycles that repeated themselves will finally come to an end. But if you try to ignore it, if you decide to postpone it, know that it is not just another delay, it is the possibility of losing what God has already prepared for this time. Before we continue, if this video is being helpful to you, take the opportunity to subscribe, leave your like and comments. This helps this message reach more people who, like you, need to hear the voice of God in this time. What you are about to experience is not entertainment, not a distraction. It is a divine call, urgent and unpostponable, a prophetic seal that carries within it the answer you were looking for. Do not think it's a coincidence that you have come this far. God marked this encounter, and His voice now echoes like a lighthouse in the dark night. This video is more than words. It is the heavenly summons that separates yesterday from now. His time has come for you, and ignoring this reality can mean prolonging pains that He has already decided to heal. Prepare your heart, because what will come next is not just teaching. It is a living revelation. With every word, every example, every biblical memory, you will be confronted with the decision to listen or not to listen. But know from now on, this is your divine call for this exact time. The voice of God is the invisible thread that sustains your destiny. It is not limited to a single channel, but manifests in multiple ways, revealing the Father's patience and love. He speaks through Scripture, where every verse becomes like a sharp sword penetrating the soul. He speaks in prayer, when the heart is silent before His presence, and suddenly an inexplicable peace invades the being. He speaks through signs, small coincidences that seem casual but carry the weight of eternity. And He even speaks through people, placing messengers in your life who sow words that only you understand in their fullness. But there is an undeniable reality. When the voice of God is ignored, life falls behind, cycles of pain repeat, and paths that were ready remain closed. Obedience opens doors, but resistance delays miracles. Look at Jonah, God called him to go to Nineveh, but he fled to Tarshish. His disobedience cast him into a storm, swallowed by a great fish, until he was returned to the place of purpose. Realize, the voice of God cannot be extinguished. It is like a river that always finds its course. You can resist, but it will only be a matter of time until you realize that outside of obedience, there is no peace. Elijah, in turn, shows us another face of this urgency. Tired, afraid, and hidden in a cave, he sought a magnificent manifestation: the strong wind, the earthquake, the fire. But the voice was not in these thunderous signs. The voice was in the gentle whisper that pierced his soul, reminding him that God speaks not only to shake, but to guide. Often you wait for an extraordinary sign, but God speaks in the silence of the early morning, in a persistent thought, in a weight on the heart that does not cease. And this urgency is not born of anger, but of love, a love so deep that it cannot bear to see you waste the destiny that was written from the womb. Perhaps you have already felt this, something burning inside you, a feeling that something bigger was about to happen, but you didn't know how to explain it. This inner fire is not by chance. It is not a passing emotion. It is the voice of God echoing, summoning, calling you to a higher level. It is as if he is saying, I created you for more. I formed you for beyond what your eyes are seeing now. The urgency of this voice is also a reminder that time does not come back. Every moment that passes without a response is a lost space that does not return. Israel heard the voice of God at Sinai, but they grumbled, resisted, doubted. And the result was 40 years of delay in the desert, living in circles, seeing the promise from afar, but not entering it. This is the gravity of ignoring the divine voice. You can even move forward, but without real progress, trapped in repetitions that wear out the soul. God speaks because he wants to spare you from pains that did not need to exist. He warns you so that you do not throw yourself into precipices. He instructs you so that you do not waste years of your life on paths that do not lead to your destiny. The urgency is not a burden. It is care. It is not an imposition. It is love. He does not remain silent because he loves you too much to passively watch your shipwreck. And here is the prophetic point. This is not a call for tomorrow. It's not something to be postponed when there is time, when the schedule is lighter, or when the mind is more willing. The voice of God is for now. Every delay makes room for distractions to steal your strength. Every delay increases the chance of you getting lost in noises that suffocate the truth. Therefore, when he speaks, the heart must respond without hesitation. Here I am. If there is one thing you need to understand at this time, it is that immediate obedience is the bridge to transformation. When the voice of God meets an available heart, no desert can resist, no wall can remain standing, no prison can stay closed. The urgency is not to pressure you, but to accelerate what has already been prepared. Today, his voice resonates over your life. Maybe you have felt it in dreams, in verses that repeat themselves before you, in unexpected messages that seem to speak directly to you. Do not ignore it. Do not harden your heart. This is the call for now. This is the prophetic weight that surrounds you. God is not just asking for your attention, he is handing you the key to the progress you have been seeking. And the decision is in your hands. The voice of God is never cast by chance. When he speaks, he does not address an anonymous mass, but individuals. He calls by name, distinguishes, separates, chooses. The mark of the chosen one is not in human titles, not in social positions, nor in impressive perfections. It is in the available heart, sensitive, willing to respond even if it does not understand everything. You are not before this message by chance. The same God who called prophets, kings, and apostles marked this meeting with you as a reminder that there is something only you can fulfill on earth. Remember Samuel. Still a boy, lying in the temple, he heard the voice of God calling him in the middle of the night. 3 times he confused the call with the voice of Eli until he finally understood it was God himself. The mark of the chosen one is like this. God insists, calls again, does not give up until you recognize. Perhaps you too have felt this call echoing in your soul in silent hours, in thoughts that return and return, in internal pressures you cannot explain. They are not coincidences. It is the loving insistence of the Creator who knows your name. Look at Paul. On the road to Damascus, his life was moving in the opposite direction of the divine purpose. But on the way, the light enveloped him, and the voice of Jesus called him by name. That encounter transformed a persecutor into an apostle, an enemy into a messenger, a blind man into a prophet to the nations. Realize, God does not wait for the chosen one's perfection. He does not demand that you be impeccable to hear his voice. He calls you exactly where you are, so that by responding you will be transformed. And Peter, in the middle of the storm, surrounded by winds and waves, he heard the voice of Jesus, "Come." At that moment, the voice was not generic. It was specific. It did not call the 12. It called Peter. It was the individual mark that made him dare to walk on the water. It is this same mark that rests upon you today. It doesn't matter if there are storms around you. The call is clear, personal, unmistakable. It is with you that God is speaking. The mark of the chosen one does not mean an easy life. It means carrying within oneself a purpose that cannot be ignored. It is carrying an anointing that makes you uncomfortable when you try to live outside of the plan. It is feeling that something inside you is never satisfied with crumbs when you were called to the king's table. Therefore, every time you try to move away, something pulls you back. This something has a name. It is the hand of God sealing your identity. You are not before this video by chance. It may seem like you clicked out of curiosity, that you stumbled upon it through a suggestion, but nothing is a coincidence in the kingdom. There is a divine marking on this encounter. The Lord knew the day, the hour, and the minute you would hear these words. Because being chosen is not a matter of luck. It is a matter of destiny. And this is exactly where the responsibility lies. Ignoring this mark is to delay your own legacy. It is to postpone blessings, to hold back progress, to walk in circles. Many confuse God's choice with perfection, but the truth is that the chosen one is not the most capable, but the most available. Not the one who knows everything, but the one who decides to say yes when everyone else prefers to flee. You don't have to be perfect. You have to be willing. Today, this mark is being reminded to you. Do not fight against it. Do not let the weight of doubts, the fear of circumstances, or comparison with others silence the voice that echoes within you. Your mark is unique, your call is personal, your purpose is non-transferable. And if this word resonates within you, it is because the time has come to assume your identity as the chosen one. It is no longer time to hide, to postpone, to pretend you don't understand. God is calling you now. If this message is touching your heart, imagine starting every morning with an intimate conversation with Jesus. The Coffee with Jesus ebook was created for this. 31 days of encounters with the Word, deep prayers, faith challenges, and revelations that transform the day. It's not just a book, it's a daily invitation to sit at the table with the one who knows your heart. And you also get 2 super bonuses completely free. But be careful, limited edition. The link to get yours is in the first pinned comment. Don't put it off. Jesus is already waiting for you. Ignoring the voice of God is never neutral. Each time his word is rejected, postponed, or muffled by the noises of the world, a spiritual consequence is established. God is patient, merciful, and always willing to call again. But each postponement costs time, costs joy, costs opportunities that do not return. Ignoring the divine voice is like closing your eyes in front of a lighthouse in the middle of the night. The path becomes darker, riskier, and longer than it needed to be. The people of Israel are a clear example. They heard the promise, saw God's power open the sea and pour manna from heaven. But instead of obeying with confidence, they preferred to grumble, doubt, and resist. The result? 40 years wandering in the desert, a repeated cycle of thirst, hunger, struggles, and losses. It was not God's original plan. The promised land was ahead, ready to be conquered, but disobedience condemned them to wait. This is what happens when we ignore the divine voice. The promise remains, but the path to it is painfully prolonged. Another example is Saul, chosen to be king. He heard God's clear command, but preferred to follow human logic. The result was tragic. He lost the kingdom, lost the anointing, lost the place that had been reserved for him. Disobedience not only causes delays, but can cost positions, relationships, ministries, and destinies. And today, how many delays have you already noticed in your own life? How many doors that seem to open suddenly closed? How many times have you found yourself repeating the same cycles as if you were stuck in a wheel with no way out? Many of these situations are not attacks from the enemy or a lack of ability. They are just echoes of disobedience, of the resistance to listen to the voice that insists on guiding your steps. But even in the consequences, God's mercy is revealed. Israel wandered for 40 years, but never stopped receiving manna. Saul lost the kingdom, but God's presence was not erased from Israel. This shows us that God never abandons, but each postponement steals something time. And time is one of life's greatest treasures. Losing time is losing history. It is losing opportunities that do not repeat themselves. That's why the voice of God cannot be postponed. He does not speak to fill the silence. He speaks because there is progress waiting for your response. Every "I'll obey tomorrow" can cost years of waiting. Every "I'm not ready yet" can delay what was already prepared. Don't be fooled. The time for obedience is today. When you ignore it, the heart hardens little by little. Spiritual sensitivity becomes fragile until the voice that was once clear begins to seem distant. This is the greatest danger, getting used to not listening, as if it were normal to live without direction. But that's not what you were called for. You were marked to listen and obey. Therefore, this is the summons. Do not harden your heart. Today, if you hear his voice, respond. Do not leave it for tomorrow. Do not wait for another moment. Do not assume that there will be another chance like this. The Spirit is calling you now, and ignoring it can cost too much. Before we continue, if this message has ignited something inside you and you feel the call to help take it to other people, you can become a channel member. You will have access to custom emojis and exclusive videos for members. Your support helps us continue to build this sacred space. Or leave a super thanks. Every seed planted here becomes part of someone's miracle. Your support is not just financial, but an act of energetic amplification. All donations are used for channel maintenance, for the creation of new videos. The voice of God not only corrects but transforms. It's not limited to pointing out mistakes, but has creative power, capable of raising what seemed definitively lost. When he speaks, what was dead revives, what was in ruins is rebuilt, and what was in silence begins to echo in praise. That's why listening to the divine voice is not just a matter of obedience, but of spiritual life or death. It is the difference between staying in the valley or crossing it towards victory. Look at the story of Lazarus. 4 days dead, buried, already smelling, completely without hope. But the voice of Jesus was enough to echo, "Lazarus, come out!" And the impossible became a reality. That lifeless body responded to the call, and what seemed concluded was transformed into an eternal testimony. This is how the voice of God works in your life. It enters places where there is no longer hope, invades situations that everyone has already declared lost, and makes life sprout where there was only death. Ezekiel had another powerful vision. He was taken by the Spirit to a valley full of dry bones, bones that no longer had flesh, no longer had life, no longer had identity. And God asked him, "Can these bones live?" To human eyes, it was impossible. But when the voice of God was released through the prophet, the bones began to unite, gained nerves, flesh, and finally, the breath of the Spirit raised them as a powerful army. This scene is not just an ancient vision. It is a portrait of what God is doing with you. He looks at the areas of your life that seem like a valley of dry bones, dead dreams, broken relationships, forgotten promises, and declares they will live. The same voice that created the heavens and the earth with a "let there be" is the voice that speaks to you today. When he said, "Let there be light," the darkness could not resist. When he said, "Let the waters be separated," chaos could not remain. When he said, "Let us make man," life arose from the dust. This same voice now echoes over your history, and what seemed chaotic, lost, without form, will begin to align under the divine order. Perhaps you are in a valley now, the valley of mourning, of loss, of confusion, of waiting. Perhaps you are surrounded by dry bones, unable to see a way out. But God did not bring you here to stay in that valley. He brought you to hear the voice that transforms. And when that voice echoes, it not only comforts but raises. It not only calms but sends. It not only restores but inaugurates a new time. Realize, victory does not come just from human effort, but from the response to the voice of God. The difference between the valley and the victory is not in the strength you have, but in how much you allow the divine voice to direct your steps. The Word of God is like a fire that purifies and a hammer that shatters the rock. It does not return empty but fulfills the purpose for which it was sent. And here is the promise: the same voice that called Lazarus out and raised dry bones is the voice that now calls you. No matter the size of the valley, no matter the intensity of the storm, no matter the weight of the night, the voice of God is enough to turn the page and inaugurate a new season. Today, that voice is saying to you, "Get up. I did not call you to die in the valley, but to conquer on the mountain. I did not set you apart to live under defeat, but to carry the testimony of victory." The question is, will you listen? Will you respond? Will you let the voice that transforms rewrite your history? Do not forget, the valley is not your end. It is just the setting where the glory of God will be revealed. Listening to the voice of God is the first step, but it is not enough. True faith is not limited to listening. It is revealed in action. Obedience is not just a beautiful idea. It is a concrete movement towards what God has said. Many hear the voice, many feel the weight of the summons, but few decide to leave their place and take the step of faith that breaks the invisible. The divine call requires a practical response, because faith that does not act is nothing but an illusion. Abraham is the living example of this call. He heard the voice of God ordering him to leave his land, his relatives, and his father's house, to go to a place he did not yet know. He did not receive maps, he did not receive details, just a word, "Go." And he went. This act of obedience not only changed his life, but inaugurated a history of eternal covenant that reaches even you today. Abraham did not wait to understand everything. He decided to trust. This is how faith acts, without seeing all the pieces of the puzzle, but trusting that God already has the complete picture in his hands. Peter also shows us this truth. He was on the shore tending to his nets when Jesus called him. He could have resisted, could have argued that he already knew the sea, that he was an expert in fishing, that his life was stable. But when he heard the voice that said, "Follow me," he dropped the nets, abandoned the familiar, and decided to trust the unknown. This simple act of leaving the nets transformed a common fisherman into an apostle, an eyewitness to miracles, and a spokesman for the gospel. Faith that does not move keeps doors closed. Faith that does not act keeps promises distant. How many times has God already spoken to you, confirmed with signs, rekindled the flame, but you remain paralyzed by fear, by doubt, by waiting? Obedience is the key that opens doors that are already ready. Heaven is not silent. The problem is that many listen but do not act. You must understand, faith is not passively waiting for everything to fall from the sky. Faith is taking courageous steps towards what God has said, even when everything around seems to contradict the promise. It is like Peter walking on the water. He didn't stay in the boat waiting for the sea to calm down. He got out, put his feet on the impossible, and experienced the supernatural. Perhaps you are facing a decision that requires faith. Maybe God has already spoken to you about changing direction, forgiving someone, starting a project, abandoning a wrong path, reconciling, or even consecrating yourself more deeply. But as long as you postpone, the promise remains suspended. It's not that God has become silent. It's that He is waiting for your response. Those who act in faith not only receive blessings, but become a channel of transformation. Abraham was not blessed just for himself, but so that through him all the families of the earth would be reached. Peter did not leave the nets just to experience personal miracles, but to be a fisher of men. The same happens with you. Your obedience not only changes your life, but opens paths for others who depend on your testimony. Therefore, this is the call: act in faith. Do not let fear steal what God has already confirmed. Do not let human logic extinguish the certainty that the Spirit has already sealed in your heart. The time to wait has passed. Now is the time to obey. The promise is clear. Those who respond to the voice not only receive victory, but inaugurate a legacy. Your response can be the seed of transformation for your home, your family, your generation. God does not need perfection. He just needs your availability. Today, He calls you to get out of the boat, to leave the nets, to walk towards the unknown, trusting that His hand will be with you every step of the way. Faith is what opens the doors, and obedience is what ensures you pass through them. There is a time for everything under heaven. There is the time of waiting, the time of preparation, the time of testing, but there is also the time of fulfillment. And this moment you are living now carries a prophetic seal. The time is no longer to postpone, but to respond. The Spirit of God is sealing on you the conviction that this is the now and not the later. Many lose years waiting for perfect conditions to obey. They wait to have more resources, more time, more clarity. But God's call never depends on favorable circumstances. It depends only on your response. Samuel heard the voice of God while still a boy. Gideon responded to the call amidst his insecurity. Mary accepted to be the vessel of the impossible, while young and without answers to all the questions. The seal of the now is not in human logic, but in the certainty that today's obedience unlocks tomorrow's destiny. Perhaps you have already experienced delays in your life. Projects that never move forward, promises that seem distant, cycles that repeat without explanation. But understand, from the moment you decide to listen and respond, the atmosphere changes. Heaven is not waiting for you to be perfect. It is waiting for you to be willing. God's grace covers your weakness. The Holy Spirit sustains your steps, and the voice of the Lord confirms, this is your marked time. The prophetic seal of the now also manifests in the heart. It is this weight you feel, this clarity that insists, this fire that does not go out. You can try to rationalize, you can try to silence it, but you know it's the voice of God. He is confirming within you that it is not a passing emotion, it is a heavenly summons. Do not ignore this seal. It is not for the distant future, it is for this very instant. God is aligning your life, accelerating processes, and opening doors that have been closed for a long time. But the key is your response. The Spirit testifies with you that something unique is happening, a synchrony between heaven's time and your earthly disposition. That is what makes this moment so special. It's not just about personal blessings, but about legacy. What you decide today will echo in your family, in your generation, in people you may not even know. God's now is always bigger than your now. It is a seal that overflows and reaches beyond what you imagine. Therefore, rise up in faith. Do not let fear or indecision steal what heaven has already released. This is the moment to align your life with the divine plan. This is the moment to assume your identity as the chosen one. This is the moment to say, "Here I am, Lord. Send me." And just as the angel announced to Mary that the word would not fail, so too the Lord tells you today, none of my promises over you will fall to the ground. This is the prophetic seal of the now. Everything you have heard so far was not just a sequence of reflections, but a direct summons from heaven. The voice of God ran through every part of this message like an invisible thread, sewing your heart to eternity. From the beginning until now, it has become clear. This voice is not a suggestion. It is not an optional piece of advice. It is not just another sound. It is the divine call that echoes over your life and demands an immediate response. You were reminded of the urgency of God's voice, that every time He speaks, He wants to spare you from delays and pains. The individual character of this call was revealed to you, that it is not generic or collective, but personal, unique, and non-transferable. You were confronted with the spiritual consequences of ignoring this voice, understanding that disobedience can cost years of waiting and losses that did not need to exist. And you were also reminded of the transformative power of that same voice, capable of lifting you from the valley, of resurrecting what has died, of rebuilding what seemed lost. Not only that, the call was clear for you to act in faith, not to remain paralyzed waiting for perfect conditions, but to take concrete steps of obedience. And finally, the Spirit sealed in your heart that this moment is the now, not tomorrow, not the distant future, but God's exact time for your life. This is the eternal echo of God's voice. He does not speak only for the instant, but for eternity. Every response of yours reverberates not only in your story, but in the history of many who depend on your yes. Just like Abraham, Peter, Mary, and so many others, your obedience will become the landmark of a generation. The decision to listen and obey today will echo for centuries, because when God speaks, He plants seeds that transcend time. And here is the final summons. Do not let it pass. Do not harden your heart. Do not postpone it one more time. Do not presume that you will have other opportunities like this one. God marked this encounter with you because He knew you needed this word now. He saw your tears, your pains, your weights, and decided to blow an unmistakable call over your life. The voice that calls you today is not just a sound. It is destiny. It is not just inspiration. It is a summons. It is not just comfort. It is a sending. God's time for you is now, therefore assume your position. Say your "Here I am." Walk by faith. Respond to the prophetic seal of this moment. Allow the voice of God not just to be heard, but to be obeyed. Because every obedience opens paths, unlocks promises, and releases victories that were already prepared. This is your marked time. This is your encounter with the divine. This is the eternal echo of God's voice, sounding over your life and calling you to move forward. Do not ignore it. If this message spoke deeply to you, do not keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and share in the comments what God spoke to your heart. Every act of engagement helps this word reach more lives that need to hear the urgent call of the Lord. Together, we form a chain of faith, and every testimony strengthens this network of hope.